Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom.
Hey, call hello Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Rakakwadash. Double honors once again go out to the apostles, bishops, and elders, great millstone, who continue to push this truth. All right, this is Naaman with the DC camp, and I thought I'd do a somewhat forgotten, well, history on a somewhat forgotten event that took place, once again highlighting these devils' hatred for us. All right, now this is, of course, the Civil War, but I'm doing this to highlight uh, again, Jake is just stuck on stupid. You got this shit, which is largely propaganda going on in Ukraine. All right, and with all the uh, incidents going on around the world in so-called black and brown countries, everyone just hopped on this Ukraine thing because what? You've been conditioned, all right, to pay attention to so-called white people's plights, all right, because you've been conditioned to look at them as though they are the people of the Most High when they're not. This goes to the psychological trauma of our people, all right? And I say this because you got this idiot, all right, that at the age of 62 says he's going to Ukraine to defend the country. This is the type of mindset the majority of Jake has. You don't know those people. All right, let's go. Let's just, mm, mm, mm. It makes you mad, but then, you know, you understand that you just got simps like this, you know? I don't know why this is not loading. Let me try another one. Let's try it again. Here we go. And it says Detroit man 62 headed to Ukraine. I'm actually going to fight for what? It says inside a Pentecostal church on 12 Mile Road, a group of Ukrainian Americans and pastors stood around M. Duhan Johnson, their heads bowed and hands stretched out, some touching the Detroiter in a show of support. Deliver us from evil, they said Friday afternoon, reciting the Lord's Prayer at Church of the King in downtown Berkeley. See, you have to understand that these devils have their own God, which is not our God. Something else we're trying to tell Jake while we're out there on the highways and byways. All right. But then you have simps like this. All right. Just think, you know, God loves everybody. And somehow he's on the same level. These people don't give a fuck about him. All right. But it says Johnson said he was with the Peace Corps response in Ukraine from 2018 to 2019, teaching at Cherkasy National University and Cherkasy State Business College. While living in Ukraine, my job was to train university professors in how we bring transparency and democracy, there goes that word, in the classroom. Teaching about government and civic society, blah, 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 blah. You know, if you want to read this, fine, go ahead. I'll put the link to this in the description box. But again, I like to stress the fact that our people just never learn. All right, this is an incident that happened during the American Civil War, and it's called the Fort Pillow Massacre. Happened in Tennessee on April 12, 1864. Here it is right here from history.com. And in this massacre, you had 300 African American soldiers who were killed, all right, in an attempt to surrender. It says, though most of the Union garrison surrendered and thus should have been taken as prisoners of war, the soldiers were killed. And I'm linking these two because here this guy goes over here to Ukraine and they've already it's already been broadcast about the racial problems over there against people like himself. And I was just watching a video day before yesterday where this Ghanaian woman, she just came straight out, and I'm gonna post this. I guess I'll give you the link to that video as well. And she's like, why are my people like worried about them motherfuckers over there where they don't give a fuck about us? All right, why don't you spend that energy? You know, she was making reference to the other so-called African countries. We know that the Ghanaians are not Hamites, but she was saying, why don't you, you know, spend that energy trying to get your own country straight? You know, these people in Ukraine and other European countries exploited our people and the Hamites for their mineral resources. Those resources, of course, had to do with the people also. All right? They don't give a fuck, never have, never will. All right? These people have proven, and this, you know, to be our enemy. But Jakes don't understand. It's a scripture we always use. Never trust thine enemy. And that's Sirach or Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 10. You read that on down. If you can't, from that, understand what's going on and how this is all spiritual warfare. This is set up in the spirit. They are never, ever, ever going to love you or even like you. We are just a means to an end. And if you pay attention and your spiritual eye is open, you'll come to realize that. All right, continuing on. It says the Confederate refusal to treat these troops as traditional prisoners of war infuriated the North and led to the Union's refusal to participate in prisoner exchanges. Fort Pillow Massacre background. In 1861, the Confederates constructed a military installation at the Fort Pillow site and named it Fort General Gideon Johnson Pillow, a Tennessee native. Fort Pillow overlooked the Mississippi River and was an important part of the Confederate river defense system before it was captured by federal forces in the summer of 1862. In March 1864, Confederate Major General Nathan Bedford Forrest, yes, if you think you've heard that name before, you remember the movie Forrest Gump. That character was named after this individual here. So let's get a little background on this guy right here. There he is. Nathan Bedford Forrest. Said he was a Confederate general during the Civil War, despite having no formal military training. Sounds like we in Israel know of someone like that. Anyway, Forrest rose from the rank of private to lieutenant general, serving as a cavalry officer at numerous engagements, including the battles of Shiloh, Chickamauga, Bryce's Crossroads, and Second Franklin. Known for his maxim, get there first with the most men, Forrest was relentless in harassing Union forces during the Vicksburg campaign in 1862 and 1863, and conducted successful raiding operations on federal supplies and communication lines throughout the war. In addition to his ingenious cavalry tactics, Forrest is also remembered for his controversial involvement in the Battle of Fort Pillow in April 1864, which is the topic, of course, of this video, when his troops massacred black soldiers following a Union surrender. After the Civil War, Forrest worked as a planner and railroad president, and here comes the point, and served as the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. This motherfucker right here, all right? So he's showing you what? His disdain for our people. So after the, well, let's just continue on. I want to jump ahead. It says he launched a cavalry raid in western Tennessee and Kentucky that was aimed at destroying Union supply lines and capturing federal prisoners. In early April, he determined to move on Fort Pillow, located 40 miles north of Memphis. At the time, Fort Pillow was being held by a garrison of around 600 men, approximately half of whom were black soldiers. It says on the morning of April 12th, Forrest's forces Force's force, estimated at 1,500 to 2,500 troops, quickly surrounded the fort. When the fort's commander, Union Major Lionel Booth, was killed by a Confederate sniper's bullet, the second in command, Major William Bradford, took control. By 3:30 p.m., Force demanded surrender from the Union troops. Bradford, hoping for reinforcements from Union boats arriving by the Mississippi River, called for a 1-hour ceasefire. Forrest, however, spotted Union boats approaching and sent men to block the possible reinforcements. Then he declared his troops would storm the fort in 20 minutes, which they did, meeting little meaningful resistance. While Major Bradford fled toward the Mississippi, most of the Union garrison surrendered and thus should have been taken as prisoners of war. So their leader, who assumed command after the actual leader, all right, was killed by a sniper. All right, so he took off, leaving his men behind. All right, it says, but confused. Oh, Slocky. It says, but Confederate and Union witness accounts attest that some 300 soldiers were gunned down by the Confederate forces, the majority of them black. You can just imagine his mindset, all right? I just read to you that he would later become the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. All right, it says the Confederate refusal to treat these soldiers as traditional POWs infuriated the North and led to the Union's refusal to participate in prisoner exchanges. Union survivors' accounts, later supported by a federal investigation, concluded that African American troops were massacred by Force's men after surrendering. Southern accounts disputed these findings. Of course. Like that's, you know, it says Forrest himself claimed that he and his troops had done nothing wrong. They always do. And that the Union men were killed because Bradford has refused to surrender. Controversy over the battle continues today. Don't know why, but hey, that's what it says. The Fort Pillow site is now a Tennessee state park. So once again, here's Jake massacred in large numbers. And these are things, of course, that they're not taught in your history class by and large. And now we have this thing called critical race theory, at least according to them. All right. And this is just a means of them to get around not telling the truth about the dark history, the wickedness that this country has perpetrated upon its so-called own citizens. Which brings up a good point and a question: were you ever actual citizens? Of course not. All right. But here again, proof. See, this is spiritual warfare. This is two people that were never meant to be together. All right. There's a gulf between us. All right. That's just the way it is. Even when you go back to Genesis, 25, but if you really understand it, it goes all the way back to what? Genesis 4th chapter, Cain and Abel. All right. These spirits keep coming back. All right. And this whole thing is about the descendants of two brothers. One represents righteousness, the other is wickedness. All right. These two have always been and will always be in opposition. Again, until the Lord comes back. And then they're going into hardcore slavery for 1,000 years. And then these people, the descendants of Jacob's brother Esau, the nation of Edom, so-called white people, as in Obadiah, they're going to be rounded up and exterminated. So don't put a lot of thought or feeling behind. And that's why when you come into this truth, you start to realize that, you know, these things are set up from on Most High. And as a, hey, the Most High is the ultimate director, producer, whatever have you. All right. So this is something that was set up before the foundations of the world were set. This is Isaiah chapter 46. See, you give credit to the so-called white man, the movie producer and director, all right, but you don't realize, hey, the Most High made that asshole. So how much more? This is Isaiah 46 and 10, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times the things that are not yet done. These things were written long ago. The victory has already been won. We're just living it out. Declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand and I will do all my pleasure. You know, our people, they tend to say, well, why is it, just why, But when you, again, in the book of Isaiah, all right, let's answer that question, because Jake likes to imitate his slave master to the point where he starts to think or try to think like him. This is Isaiah 55, verse 8. This is the Most High. He says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Most High Yahweh. Those of you that think you're on some kind of level, like this degenerate scum we're talking about, his path is already set. All right. Verse 9, for as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. 10, for as the rain cometh down and the snow from heaven, and returneth not thither, but watereth the earth and maketh it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the water. 11, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I send it. That's why we always say these prophecies are jumping off the pages. I mean, for you people that are stuck in those whorehouses, those harlot houses called churches, you're where you should be. You had ample opportunity to ask the appropriate question, all right, but you fan your hand, you're mocked, all right, and hey, even as I say this, as I just read this, it's possible that some of you can still be saved. That hand is still stretched out, and I'm talking about Israelites now, no one else. So-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, so-called, that are also scattered across the face of the earth, that don't look like what you would associate as being an Israelite. Why? Because they mixed amongst the other nations. That's in part a part of the Most High's divine wisdom and genius to hide us amongst. And there's a scripture that escapes me off the hand. I think it's something to do with Moab, where he hid us amongst them. That's why. See, there is always an insidious or ulterior motive behind these Edomites, these so-called white people scientists, and the one I'm taking particular mention of is their DNA, all this shit. That's their attempt to try to find out who's who. All right? Where's the sands of the sea? And these things, Jeremiah 31st chapter, these things, they're limited by what they can do. Whereas on the right-hand side, the Most High Yahweh, His Son Yahweh Shai, through the Spirit, these things are done. And on the left-hand side, he doesn't have that. So he has to do it by physical means. He has to try to duplicate these feats in the physical sense, or his technology. All right, that's what was given to him, his science. All right, that's his devil. All right, that's why you should never trust anything that comes out of this devil's mouth or anything he's offering you. And a lot of you, unfortunately, if you hear this, those of you that decide to take a certain or participate in a certain medical procedure, all right, that the whole world was sort of convinced in doing for no apparent reason, especially the one that was told you, all right, and now you're having, because A, they're the ones that gave you, what's their phrase they like to use, medical misinformation. Hey, again, so I don't want to, drift off, but you can see this is one wicked bastard. And again, like Jake's, this is something that, as Ecclesiastes 1 and 9, let me get that real quick. Throughout our history, we have served in this devil's military, all right? Whoops, why did I do that? Ecclesiastes 1 and 9. These things keep repeating themselves because these spirits keep coming back. This is Ecclesiastes 1 and 9. The thing that hath been, it is that shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. All right. So, once again, hopefully those who have viewed this video, I hope you're edified. This is about the Fort Pillar Massacre, yet another. And all these things have been, which I'm assuming this this devil was hope this and other information would be suppressed. But hey, the internet, we used it. Of course, that's the Most High made a way for this information to get out using the unicorn. This word got out, and it's out around the world. And this is helping bring this man down. The truth, as it were, is bringing this man down. All right. He wishes he had never made the internet. As Senator or former Senator J. Rockefeller stated from West Virginia. Hey, so with that, hey, Shalom.